Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is my Forbes colleague, staff writer, Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, Brittany, thanks for having me back.
Something that both Democrats and Republicans do, and something that a bipartisan group of Democrats and Republicans are against, is congressional stock trading. And you're reporting that 6 members of Congress disclosed 11 stock transactions worth more than $1 million in 2025. Those are some big numbers here. I want you to break them down for us because, as I said, there's long been a push to ban congressional stock trading. But as of now, to start off the conversation, what are the rules when it comes to members trading stock?
They are allowed to do it. They are supposed to report the trades within 45 days. If they don't report them within 45 days, they have a fine of $200. So not a ton of incentive there to make sure you get that report on time, although there are some journalists out there, us and some other outlets, who are pretty quick to look at people who are beyond 45 days, so you might get an article on that. It's also something that we're seeing a lot of candidates for Congress are running against the incumbents because they can certainly chastise them for that. So there is a political reason to file it on time, but right now that is largely the extent of the rules.
And because aside from that political reason to file on time, $200 isn't that big of a fine, are you seeing a lot of members of Congress flouting these rules a bit?
Oh yeah. No, we've seen a lot of those. It's kind of ridiculous. I believe Insider back in 2021 did this lengthy report on this, and at the time, it was 78 Congress people, 14% of lawmakers were late to report stock trades in 2021, which is just amazing. I mean, it's not that hard to report something within 45 days. The typical reasons why they don't are either, I didn't hear about it from my accountant in time, I didn't have a system set up to inform this, or, oh, I didn't know it was the law, which, as most citizens know, not knowing something's the law does not excuse you should you go ahead and violate it.
So let's talk about these $1 million trades a bit from 2025. I want to break down exactly who these lawmakers were. There are some Republicans on this list, some Democrats. Let's talk with Republicans. I want to divide it by party. Who were they and what were they trading?
First up, we have Republican Scott Franklin of Florida, who sold Baldwin Insurance Group on February 7th. Now, this stood out because it was the only sale that did not involve a tech company, but Franklin had been involved in the insurance previously. He sold his company to Baldwin, so that explains why he has those shares. We've also got Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania. He was the only senator on this list. 2 sales. He sold Rumble, the conservative video platform, back in January 16th, and his wife sold Goldman Sachs in February of that month. And then finally, we have John Rose, who sold Alphabet in June, which was not the greatest of timings. I mean, if you need the money, you need the money, but afterwards it went up by about 88%, so not great there. Rose is currently running for governor of Tennessee.
And what about the Democrats? Who were they and what did they trade?
The Democrats would be Representative Cleo Fields, Democrat of Louisiana, bought Nvidia on June 26th. He already held some shares in it, so he increased his holdings there. Representative Josh Gottheimer, he was responsible for most of the trades, 5 overall, each one over $1 million, and they were all involving Microsoft. He is a former Microsoft executive there and has a lot of options in the company, and that's what was all transpired. And that was all on his 5 trades were all on Valentine's Day, which is nice. And then, of course, everybody's favorite Democratic stockholder, Nancy Pelosi, her spokesperson said she does not have the stocks, her husband does. Her husband had a very good trade back on June 20th, it appears. He exercised 200 Broadcom call options, allowing him to buy 20,000 shares of the company for $80, which is not bad for a stock that was actually trading at $250 that day. It has since gone on to reach about $350. Now, former Speaker Pelosi has come out and actually is in favor of a ban. She had been an obstacle to it in previous Congresses. In a possible related story, she's out of here at the end of this Congress. So
I've talked to Democrats and Republicans alike, and a lot of Congress members who don't agree on much. I'm thinking of Congressman Mike Levin from California, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna in Florida, rather. Tim Burchett from Tennessee. A lot of these members of Congress don't agree on much, but they do agree that there's some ethical concerns here when it comes to members of Congress trading stock. You work on the intersection of money and politics. That's where a lot of your reporting lives. What are those concerns?
I think you saw a lot of them in the case of former North Carolina Republican Senator Richard Burr back around the time of the pandemic, when he made a lot of very well-timed stock trades, as did one of his relatives, on news that kind of predated the pandemic, but certainly, with an upcoming shutdown, looked like they were pretty good bets. Now, the issue is he was investigated by the Department of Justice, and they did not pursue any charges. Having talked to some people who are in this industry, in terms of prosecuting financial crimes, it is very difficult to prove insider trading. It looks like, the way we refer to it, it looks like it's pretty easy. You know something, you trade on it. Not great, but that's a lot harder to prove in a court of law.
And then if you talk to members of Congress, I'm sure in the House and Senate, not many would tell you they are getting involved in politics for the paycheck. Are these members of Congress exactly in a cash crunch? Is that why they're trading these stocks? What does their paycheck look like?
Some of them might be. Members of Congress make $174,000 a year, which is a good salary, but they're expected to obviously stay in there, have a residence in their home district. Ideally, they have a place to live in D.C., so that's two residences they have to pay for. It's not as great a salary as it might seem, if you were living out in a more affordable part of the country. So it's, they also have not had a pay raise since 2009, which is almost unheard of unless you're the president, in which case I think it goes back to 2001. But, going through all those years without a pay raise just doesn't make sense. And I think it might actually hurt your chances of finding qualified candidates to run for Congress, because it is going to be a financial hit for some of these people who are running.
Last year, I had a conversation with Congressman Tim Burchett on his push to ban congressional stock trading. And this is what he told me in that conversation back in March of 2025. I've been told to quit talking about stuff like this by some of our leadership. And I said, well, it's the truth, though, right? And they said, well, yeah, but some members of leadership aren't real happy about when I talk about things like this. And he said that he believed that the push to ban this wouldn't go anywhere. But I know since then there has been more of an effort here to ban congressional stock trading. Is there legislation on that? I mean, where exactly are they right now on that?
Yeah, there are bills in both the House and the Senate. The bill in the House, I believe, is before committee. The one in the Senate has come out of committee. You're seeing, it's one of these things over the last several Congresses. It's like you've seen more and more energy behind this issue. So, it seems more likely now than in previous Congresses that it actually might pass, because it is such a great issue to run against incumbents on. Now, I also get why members may not want to talk about this, because said that the salary, $174,000, solid, it's good money, but not for what they're required to do with two residences there necessarily. And you've also got, the stock market is a great way to save. Historically, the S&P 500 is up 16%, I think, over the last year. You're not going to get 16% by just sticking your money in a CD or some sort of savings account. Your middle income, you got to put your kids in college. Putting your money in a market and index fund is a great way to do it. And it seems like that might be off the table for these lawmakers.
This encompasses both Republicans and Democrats, a senator, members of the House. Zach, when you're reporting on this, I mean, these transactions obviously are huge, worth more than $1 million. What are your takeaways here from your reporting?
So a lot of times the stocks that these lawmakers hold are connected to their previous occupation. If we mentioned Scott Franklin having shares of Baldwin Insurance Group, and also Gottheimer having all those options in Microsoft. So there's often a connection there that, just selling them may not work out all that well. And sometimes, as Franklin actually told me, sometimes lawmakers are obliged to hold shares and can't sell them right away, which is something that the House law looks like it would require them, the House bill looks like it would require them to do within 90 days. So, if you got shares of a company as a deal for selling your company to it, and you have to hold them for 5 years, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to drop out of Congress when it's time to sell, or not run in the first place? A lot of these trades, though, are really suspicious. You'll see a lot of very well-timed trades. And sometimes it's information that everybody in the public knows. They're trading on information. The fact that, people who are trading in advance of a government shutdown, kind of knew that was happening if that was something you were going to trade on. Same thing with the tariffs. There's been a lot of reporting about, oh, this person bought or sold whatever shares before the tariffs. We knew tariffs were coming at some point, not necessarily the exact day, but even then you were given about a little bit of heads up that it was coming. So, but there's still some, and then there's also just some flat out conflicts, like former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is a strange phrase to say. She traded Tesla, and she was also the chair of the subcommittee on Doge, which, Elon Musk Doge. It just doesn't look great for them to do it. It's one of I just think the answer is not as simple as what some of these bills and some of the opponents to stock trading are hoping for. I mean, my thought is that it might make a lot more sense if you were to do these bans, but also pay lawmakers, and also, extend this to the president and Supreme Court justices, pay them a salary that is commensurate with what they would get in the private sector, also factoring in that they're not going to be able to invest in the market. But also, ban speeches, ban honorariums, ban, those are already banned for congressional men, but don't let Supreme Court justices take junkets, no book deals as well. But what do I know?
Or at least have a salary that does keep up with inflation and the cost of living. But Zach, per usual, I always appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.